Good evening and welcome, or welcome back, if you join us for the first Montessori Roundtable. At that time, when in November we had that first roundtable, we had a family therapist and counselor talk to us, Stan Ferguson. He kind of walked us through the process, the natural developmental process of our children's social and emotional life. And he said that this process had been altered by so many months, even years, in isolation during the pandemic. At that time, Stan said that our children's social emotional development really begins with a mutual, emotional, and reciprocal interaction between parents and children, and that these positive interactions lead to secure attachment, which is the ability to separate and reconnect with a loved one, feeling safe and trusting the process. Now, this continuous process of separation and attachment helps your children establish, strengthen, and maintain trust in themselves, their own abilities, in the environment, and in others. And all this while developing a strong sense of I am able and capable, which seems to be the trademark of Montessori children from a very young age. Now, last time, in that first Montessori Roundtable, we promised you that next time we met, we were going to give you ideas, practical ideas, that are very easy to implement at home, and that will help you remove obstacles to the development of autonomy and self-regulation. And at the same time, they will help your child experience the joy and the benefits of purposeful activity. Now, to do that, we gathered this wonderful panel of experts from all 4 Montessori schools participating today: Liberated Montessori, Montessori Children's House, White Rock Montessori, and Lumen. And they will be sharing their wisdom and their creativity with you during our breakout sessions. Now, last time, we invited an external expert to come and talk to us, and this time we did the same thing. This time, we invited Megan Becker, who is an occupational therapist, and Megan works with some of our children within our Montessori classrooms. And tonight, she's going to be talking to us about how coordinated, voluntary, purposeful movement is essential for the development of self-regulation and autonomy. And she will also be telling us a little bit of how she supports the development of these skills during her therapeutic sessions with our children. So please help me welcome Megan Baker.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. As Tara mentioned, my name is Megan, and I am an occupational therapist here at Lumen. I also work at Dallas ISD, as well as charter schools within the area. So I do have the opportunity to see a variety of approaches within the school setting and ways in which we can support children's growth and development. So you can see my presentation on the screen there. So we're going to be talking about the identification of and strategies within the home and school setting to help support children in their growth and development. But before we begin, everyone should have a note card under their chair. And so you can grab your note card and your pencil if you like. And whenever everyone is ready, you can write your name on one side of the card. So just write your name anywhere on the note card. Okay, now when you're done with that, try writing your name with your opposite hand, with your non-dominant hand. Okay, and then put it back in your dominant hand and try writing your name with your eyes closed. I wanted to start off with this exercise because it gives you some perspective on how children with fine motor challenges or visual motor challenges, how it can feel for them to do simple things like writing their name. And so that's one thing with occupational therapy. We try and put ourselves in the child's shoes and come at developing different skill sets from a variety of approaches and different ways, keeping in mind that it may take them more time, they may do it a different way. As Charlotte mentioned, that they are able. Ableism is a term right now and a big thing with occupational therapy, so figuring out different ways to empower them to do simple skills, such as writing their name. Okay, so we'll get back to the presentation now. I thought a natural place to start with this was the question why. So why are we talking about this? And it is because occupational therapy, or OT, assesses the meaningful jobs or occupations in a child's specific stage of life. As we know, those change. When you get older, we have occupations. Younger children, as they develop, go through different occupations and jobs that they participate in on a daily basis. So as an occupational therapist, we can provide meaningful interventions for the skills needed to support their engagement and participation in their home, school, and community environments. As with different types of medicine, early intervention is often key and needed to help develop strategies and confidence and foundational skills that carry with them throughout the rest of their life. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So we're starting with identification, and then we'll get to the strategies. So differences in occupations are often noticed by teacher, parent, or other service providers, sometimes doctors too. And occupations can fall within these 4 categories. There are different categories, however, these 4 topics are ones that I find are commonly identified by these professionals and that we provide specific intervention for in occupational therapy. But these are not the only ones. I also put them in this chart right here because they do overlap, such as self-care skills involve fine motor development, as well as self-regulation. Coordination influences self-care development, regulation, so all of these things impact each other. We're going to start with self-care. So I think that is one that is easy to identify within the home setting specifically as well. So self-care examples involve utensil use, feeding utensils, do children finger feed, can they use spoons, forks, dressing, taking clothes on, taking clothes off, and toileting. There's a lot of different steps in that, identifying the need for toileting, hygiene, the different steps. So it's important to know when looking at these skills within your children or your students, to know the child's age, and an occupational therapist can help you with that. There can be some fluctuation on when a kid develops these different skills. However, it's important to know, what is age appropriate for that child. Such as I did an evaluation yesterday, and there was a 2-year-old. The buttons, it's okay that we can't unbutton the buttons right now, and that skill, given time, can come. And then exposure. So if the child has had the opportunity to participate and practice this activity. So I have this picture here. As far as cooking at home, has the child had time to practice with their family member? And is that why there's a delay, or is it more of a physical or neurological delay? Okay, so the second occupation that I list here is fine motor skills. These are some examples. So opening containers at home, that involves your finger muscles. Coloring, is a child seemingly uninterested in using crayons? Do they have trouble coloring within the lines, imitating vertical lines, horizontal lines? And then just observing their preferred activities. So this can give us some insight too as to whether there's a delay or a challenge going on. Do they prefer to run outside and don't really like to sit down and work on a puzzle or a craft? I have in the italics here another thing to consider where it may not necessarily be a physical or challenge or visual challenge. Is the child having trouble staying seated and engaged during activities? Because that can impact their fine motor skill development. Again, it may not be a muscle weakness, but are we just having trouble sitting down and focusing? We can go on to the third topic now, regulation. So Self-regulation, an example of this is having a lot of different emotions, but being able to control them. Not necessarily ignoring the feelings, but being able to still participate at school or at home despite getting really upset or really excited. I work with a kid at Lumen actually, and we use the How Does My Engine Run a lot. Different techniques, work with different children, but like I have pictures of cars and show them, which car do you feel like this car that drives really fast or really slow? And so regulation can really be a powerful tool, and there's different visuals you can use to help children with that. So examples I give of this is sensory seeking and avoiding. So my example of that kid that I see here actually is a kid just constantly running back and forth, very, very active, can't sit still. As far as sensory avoiding, do they cover their ears or do they put iPads and things up to their ears? I have some students that crave that noise and they just want to hold the music or the iPad up to their ears. Another thing to identify challenges with regulation is transition. So an example of a transition is like getting ready to get out the door in the morning. Despite preparation, despite the normal pattern of getting up, getting dressed, getting out, is that challenging? Or at school, is transitioning between classrooms really hard for them? So those are two examples when a child can have trouble with regulation. However, I do note it's important to, again, identify other factors like communication abilities. Children who are working on their verbal skills can become very upset when we don't understand what they're saying, so it may not necessarily be sensory, but it could be a communication factor as well. Okay, so there's one more identification topic that I'm going into right now, and it's coordination. So balance. I have some children that are up on their toes, and it impacts their ability to access their classroom materials, reach in their cubby, reach in bookshelves, things like that. Stairs, going up and down the stairs, is that a safety concern for some children? And then dominant hand development. So when we're babies, we develop ability to reach across your midline. And then often in the toddler age, we're looking at do we consistently use one hand over the other, and that's important because it does impact things like handwriting and activities where you use two hands, like buttons, for instance. Okay, and so now I go on to the strategy. So that was the identification, and it's important. There's a lot of details, and you're welcome to ask me any questions about that later. But once we've identified these different areas and where we're seeing a challenge, then we can apply these strategies to each of these different tasks. And so I put these in order. Again, these aren't the only strategies of how I've seen them effective in my practice, but using motivational, play-based activities. So, as Charo mentioned earlier, just really making it fun and meaningful for the kid. I find that often going outdoors. Some kids that have trouble with handwriting, I find they're really motivated when we're outdoors and writing about things we see and hear and touch. Imaginative play. Of course, with kids, it's so great. I had a kid with Mr. Potato Head today, and we were working on fine motor strengthening, and he had so much fun imagining where he should put the different Mr. Potato Head pieces. And then I added Legos on here because I do find a lot of my kids enjoy building, creating different things with Legos. Play-Doh is another one I didn't add on here, but definitely see that's a motivational strategy for children. And then for the second strategy up here is direct practice. And I wrote this one because I attend a lot of continuing education courses for occupational therapy, and there's a lot of research right now on just direct practice of the activity. And such as brushing your teeth. You can simulate it doing different things, but sometimes there's nothing like doing the direct activity and breaking that down into smaller steps, like shoe tying, break it into all the different steps, and then figure out where there's a problem and how we can support the kids. So that's direct practice. And then for the third one, I put use of commonly seen items within the home setting. So I find in occupational therapy, again, it's making it meaningful for the kid, but bring things like cotton balls and Q-tips and rice, and even at home doing activities with these things can be just as fun as some fancy toy or some fancy game. Plenty of times we've made like snow with cotton balls or skeletons with Q-tips, or use rice to pour and scoop. So use of just common home items can be very effective. And then I have as for number 4 is use of timers and scheduled breaks as a strategy. First we work on this activity until the timer goes off, and then you can pick the break. And so I found that definitely when working on a skill that's more challenging for a child, that this has really, really helped them. And as well as myself, will say, using timers and taking breaks. And so you can go to the next slide. I put some helpful resources and links. These are from a school that I worked for in Fort Worth for a little while. It's called Kinder Frogs, and it is a school for primarily children with Down syndrome, but a variety of disabilities. And these resources were selected to support parents at home and teachers that wanted a few extra activity ideas for fine motor and visual motor development. Those are just a few. And then I ended with questions that I believe Charles said, if you think of anything, you can write it down and it may be addressed later. Correct. Well, thank you for your time, and feel free to stop me out there if you think of something later, but I appreciate getting to speak with everyone.
Thank you so much, Megan. I think we all appreciate having a greater understanding of the amazing work that occupational therapists, OTs, do. And I've seen it for myself. It's really impressive what they can accomplish. And I think you've done a great job of helping us appreciate the essential nature of movement and its connection to independence and self-regulation. So my name is Krista Montague. I'm with Montessori Children's House and School, and I'm here to discuss how this connects to what we do in our Montessori classrooms. So there's so much research now in neuroscience to help us really understand how intertwined the relationship is between cognitive development and movement. There's this physicist who is now a neuroscientist named Rodney Cottrell, and he tried to sum it up in saying thinking is a bodily function. So this idea that movement is just this physical aspect, completely unrelated to the rest of the body and to the mind, this is a false assumption. And so we have to really understand this if we're going to understand our children. Many educational models are really working now to help bring movement into their curriculum, but not Montessori schools, because we already have it integrated movement into our curriculum. It's what we do. This is who we are. The way that movement is part of the everyday life of the child in the Montessori classroom. Is the way that it's hands-on. This is the essential nature of a Montessori classroom. Maria Montessori said, watching a child makes it obvious that the development of his mind comes about through his movements. This experiential, experimental interaction with the environment, that's learning. Maria Montessori was unique in her understanding of the value of movement in the child's entire formation. We're talking about a holistic understanding of the child. Movement is integral to who we are as people, and it is essential to our psychic functioning. There's this kind of cycle that occurs. The brain directs the movements of the body, and then the development of the brain is affected by the movements of the body. And so it's a cycle, and for the child, as they are coming into this conscious control, this is a part of that. Has anyone ever done this exercise where you imagine that if your house were on fire and everybody that you love was safe and sound and you had a chance to get one thing out of your house, just one thing, what would it be? Have you ever done this? Anybody ever done this? Maybe it's your photo album. Maybe it's some special memento from a grandparent. Well, I've done this And I've not only done it for my house, I've also done it for the children's house, the Montessori classroom. And the work that I would choose would be table washing. Table washing is a work, and for the 3 to 6 frame, it's a little different in elementary, but in 3 to 6, what it is the child has this tub, and the tub, they have a pitcher, which they get water, they put water, they arrange all of their things, they've got a sponge, and they've got a brush, and they've got soap, and they scrub that table. And from a common sense aspect, choosing table washing is really foolish. That is a full move, because let me tell you, there are individual works in the classroom that cost over $1,000. I can get everything for table washing at Ross down the street for less than $30. So why on earth is it that table washing is the item that in my gut I feel, no, I wouldn't want to start tomorrow without table washing. If I had to recreate this Montessori classroom from scratch, I must have it. It's the one. And I'll tell you what it is. When I see a child who has completely immersed herself in that activity, I will tell you that this is the activity that I find has the deepest and most complete synchronicity of the child's will, their desire to complete an activity, right? Their desire to do what they've chosen to do. Their mental faculties, knowing the sequencing, understanding what to do next, that control of error as they're analyzing their movements as they go, and their physical exertion. This is the one. This is the work that I find to be the most transformational. And it is because of that synergy of all of those things. Now, the goal is for the child to become an integrated whole with a harmony among all parts of her being. This doesn't just happen with table washing. I stand by my statement that it is the most important. I stand by that. But the truth is, this happens with all of the Montessori works. And you can see this interconnectivity that is the beginning of a unified personality. And when I see that child who has completely given themselves up to this work, who is exerting themselves to their full capacity, because the table's big for their little bodies and they're stretching, and it's like the whole body is engaged. When I see this, I know that that child is on the road to mental discipline. I know that that child has a harmony between their psychic and their physical natures. I know that that child is having the opportunity to express their human tendencies of exploration, as they will explore how much soap to use and how much water, of exactness and precision. When you see the child and they're trying to use their sponge to get all the soap off of the table, and there's that edge, and they're finding that little bit of soap that just fell off the edge of the table, and they're carefully getting every last side. These are the moments that really make that child an integrated person. It is impossible to educate the mind without involving the body. Learning is thinking and movement integrated. Okay, so now we're at the breakout portion. There's going to be 2 breakout groups. One is 0 to 6, the other is 6 to 12. If it's 0 to 6, you stay here. If it's 6 to 12, you head on out. Before you go, please take your index cards and pencils with you to continue writing questions. We will read as many of those questions to the panel as we can, because we're going to come back for Q&A. Y'all know that, right? And we will email answers to the ones we don't have time to get to tonight, and you're going to get a link to the video of all the presentations in a couple of days.